We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.
So you think that you can tell us how to live our lives, never questioning the source from which your moral code derives. You think that suffering is part of some great plan that's been devised. I wonder, what will it take for you to start opening your eyes? I wonder.
Hello, and welcome to the Atheist Experience. Today is, Sunday, of course, January 9th, 2022. This is the first show of the new year. I'm your host, Jim Barrows, and joining me today is Dave Carpe, the bleepin' DM. Warnock.
Do we actually bleep on this show? I thought we said everything.
I bleep myself just out of habit.
Happy New Year, man. The first one
Happy
of the
New
new
Year.
year.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
I feel
So what have you been
honored.
up to?
I'm just trying to get through another year, man, and trying to stay warm. I hate the cold. It's gotten cold here. I don't
Oh.
like it. I don't like the
Are
cold.
you having the same problem we're having? Like 2 days ago, it went really, really cold, and it warmed up, and then went really, really cold again. And then the last couple of days, it hasn't been sure what the heck it's going to do.
Yeah, my body's freaking out.
Oh, yeah, that's not good. Well, hopefully the weather will figure itself out, and we'll get something. I'm actually, as much as I hate the cold, I really do hope it gets cold because I really do not want a busy hurricane season in the Atlantic this year. So, and I don't know if cold in Texas has any effect on that or not, but if it does, let's hope it stays cold.
I think we're in the end times anyway, so it doesn't matter, right?
Again, as usual, from a certain point of view, we're always in the end times. I mean, even if that end times is a couple billion years in the future. So, anyway, this is the Atheist Experience. We're a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 organization dedicated to the promotion of positive atheist culture and the separation of religion and government. So, our first call, Dave, I don't know if we really want to subject our callers to this first caller, but I suppose we probably should. He could very well be a troll. We'll have to see.
Is he a troll? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Hello, Matt in Austin. How you doing?
Baba booey, baba booey. Hey guys, how are you?
Hey, Matt. How you doing,
How's it
buddy?
going?
I'm doing pretty good. Katie suggested I call in and give you guys a quick update because we want to make sure you get the callers. Because I would imagine you guys are going to get all kinds of theists today and have a great show. I survived the surgery. I do not have a God-shaped hole in my heart. I have a picture of my heart, which is now on the refrigerator, with my chest opened up and the bypass grafts in there. I'm doing pretty good, recovering on or ahead of schedule. I did a surprise episode of The Hang Up last week. So if anybody wants to know details about the surgery, we're not going to talk about them here, and I won't be talking about them much at all when I'm back, but they can go check that out. I'll be doing a Hang Up again this Wednesday as the first return back. And then I'm hosting Atheist Experience next Sunday. So
awesome.
Yeah.
You sound good, man.
They tried, but they couldn't take me out.
If I know you, you probably showed a picture of your scar on video on the Hang Up, didn't you? Come on, didn't you?
Oh, you can see I wear an open shirt. You can see the top of the scar just when I'm walking around.
Matt Dillahunty, everyone. I thought it would be great for the fans to hear from you that everyone's been thinking of you and wishing you a speedy recovery. So I'm really glad you felt up to calling in today.
Yeah.
And you sound great, man.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. There's still some breathing stuff to sort out, but it's getting better all the time. A little bit of leg pain and swelling, but I'm not in too terrible pain. I really appreciate everybody's well wishes and the nice gifts that ACA sent me some cheese stuff, and so did some other people, and I appreciate it. And mostly, I'm grateful. Well, I'm grateful to the surgeon and the surgical team. I think I said I prefer, my favorite person on the team was the anesthesiologist, because I went in and laid down in the bed and was joking. And then I woke up later that day. And yeah, they'd strapped my hands down so that I didn't pull out my central line, but I barely remember it. Didn't feel a thing, never really suffered. And a huge thank you to my brother, Brad, who's my favorite person on the planet, and Arden, who's my other favorite person on the planet, for taking care of me. I've been basically living in a recliner for the past 2 weeks since the surgery, but everything's going well, and I can speak in multiple sentences without having to cough or sputter. So screw it. I'm coming back next week.
Awesome. Okay. Looking forward to it. And contrary to popular belief, they did in fact find your heart, right?
They did. I got pictures and everything.
Matt, you got a new heart for Christmas.
Well, they say one of the side effects is mood swings. And I have to admit, it's not anything to do with the heart. I think it's got to do with surgery and phasing life. I found myself emotional on more than one occasion lately, but I didn't have any epiphanies, didn't have any experiences with God. So everybody who was, praying for God to take me out, well, that failed because he's a big wimp. And I'll be back doing the show in a week. I hope you guys have a great show today, but I'm going to go back and rest some more so I can do it next.
Thanks, Matt. Good to hear from you, man.
Good to hear from you.
Take care.
All right.
Okay. So that was Matt. I know some people in chat had asked how he was doing, and you heard it from the man himself. He's doing pretty good, which is always good to hear. So look forward to seeing him next Sunday.
I bet there were some theists praying that he would recover because they like to call in and argue with him. So they don't want him to be taken out.
One would kind of hope, but I'm sure there was some praying that he wouldn't make it. But I'm glad he did and doing okay. And we'll be back in the saddle on next Sunday. So
yeah, sounds great. Good to hear from him.
Yeah. All right. So on to a regular call. We'll take them in order. Theists get precedence, of course. And so here is Aidan in Illinois. Did I pronounce? Is it Aidan?
Yes, it's Aidan.
Okay. So how can we help you today, Aidan?
Actually, I'm an atheist. Actually, proud to come out and say that I'm an atheist now because of the show.
Okay.
Really helped. My issue has been with being an atheist and no longer believing in an afterlife. I mean, that solidified my feelings about dying with dignity. And unfortunately, my family does not feel the same way, and especially my mom. And so I don't know how to deal with that, because right now I'm looking at a diagnosis with probably something like MS or some other I believe it's demyelinating autoimmune disease. And so I'm losing control of my muscles, and I'm unable to do a lot of stuff that I could before, and I have sudden inflammation in my knees, and I'm only 27.
Hi, Aidan. I remember you. I talked to you a couple of weeks ago, I think. Yes.
Yes, sir, you did. And I appreciate it so much. You literally made my week.
Yeah, you were given a terminal diagnosis by a neurologist a year ago, if I'm correct. Or no, not that long ago.
Yeah, it would have been about 6 months ago, and it was a preliminary, and I wanted to get a second opinion, and then unfortunately I lost my job, my health insurance, and so that just kind of fell to the wayside. But like even recently, the symptoms, they're exponentially getting worse, and so I can be laying in bed, and my brain won't communicate now to the rest of my body that I need to breathe while I'm sleeping sometimes. So I wake up literally having
Mhm.
to stop breathing multiple times for no reason.
Yeah, that's the neurological disease. ALS is that way. That's what I have, and it's really just a experience of your brain doesn't communicate with your muscles, and mine have begun to atrophy because when you don't use them, they atrophy and they fade away. And so yeah, it's not like my muscles are hurting or anything, but it just the brain's quit telling them what to do. They're not getting signals from the brain, and it's yeah, and that's a similar experience as what you're having, is what I understand.
Yeah, it's frustrating, and I mean, for me at least, I am actually in pain a lot, like
Yeah.
constantly. And so, I'm trying to do pain management just with like 800 milligrams of ibuprofen every 4 hours, and then I have gabapentin to help with the pain at night, and then I'm dealing with constant muscle tremors now, so I can't do specialty work that I need to for my job as an engineer without help because of that.
Mm-hmm. And the other issue, I think you mentioned it as you called in, you have Christian family, and they're having a hard time dealing with this, and it's caused some real fracturing in your relationships with them. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I come from Church of Christ, which if you know, even if you hear the name Church of Christ, it is not as conservative as what I grew up in, which women, when they were in the church building, were not allowed to laugh, literally, at all. And women were not allowed to speak inside the building at any point during service. And you had to wear a veil over your hair, no pants. So I kind of definitely broke the mold walking in there, being an engineer, and definitely wearing pants.
Well, what is your biggest challenge in dealing
opinion.
with your Christian family? I think your mom is having a hard time with your atheism and with your illness. Is that correct?
Yes, she definitely has a hard time with the atheism, because I kind of had 2 or 3 different conversations with her, and one of them was about how I'm starting to do stuff with the secular therapy project, to kind of help me navigate a lot of this emotional stuff, that residual fear of demons for some reason. I logically know it, but I can't get rid of it. And then I called the Hotline Project the other day just to have somebody to talk to, and they were fantastic. I definitely recommend it. And so I was trying to talk with her, and she basically said, don't say you're an atheist when you come home for Christmas. Just keep on looking. Keep reading the Bible. You need to read the Bible more. And I said, Mom, it's because I read the Bible literally 10 times through, and I have basically an associate's from a Christian college and biblical theology and stuff that I don't believe. There's no way I could. And so that caused a big rift. And then when I told her that basically there was an obvious neurological problem, that originally it looked like it was just presenting as narcolepsy, but now it's obviously very pervasive through my life, I told her we got to have this discussion about what's going to happen at the end, because I don't believe anything's going to happen to me after I die. I'm gone, and that's fine. But I don't want to be completely physically debilitated and have you guys caring for me, and they already don't have the money for it, and I want to go out on my own terms, and she can't accept that.
Well, everyone has to deal with family disconnect in their own way, and it's different for everyone. So many of us have family rifts or disconnects because of religion, and if we've come out of any kind of fundamentalism like you have and like I did, then there's going to be some pushback from them. And for me, it's about boundaries and what you're okay with. And as you know, whoever's watching this, everyone's got to draw their own lines and whatever they're comfortable with, and it's not the same for everyone. There's no one size fits all. My family members have a hard time with my atheism, and with my terminal illness because they don't know what to do with that. And that's what you're dealing with, Aidan, I think, is that, their narrative includes an everlasting life and a savior and an eternity with Jesus in heaven. And when you reject all of that, and that's not part of your story anymore, then they really don't have a category to put that in. And so they just want you to be quiet about it. And if you can, and it's okay, then that's fine. But if you can't, and if you feel like it's causing you to not be authentic and not be free to be yourself, then speak up and say, no, that's not okay with me. I'm going to be who I am. And this is the thing I've adopted. I am who I am. And whoever in my life is okay with that, then we can be friends and we can get along fine. If you're not okay with that, that's not my problem. It's your problem. And so, but you've got to make your own peace with that. And I'm never going to be one to tell people how they have to do that.
Right, and that's just it. Like, my mom and I actually have a very close relationship, and believe it or not, going to secular therapy has helped me to bond better with my mom because I'm understanding why she does the stuff she does, or certain things that she says. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely been beneficial. But at the same time, when we can't have this hard conversation about, what's going to happen, because this is not going to go away. I'm not even worried about whether or not my funeral would be religious or not or what. But what I'm more concerned about is I'm single. I'm by myself. I don't have anybody on my father's side of the family. In fact, my stepdad, but I just call him my dad, his family's basically shunning me because I'm not religious. And as far as, like I said, my mom, she's a big proponent of my life, and I do respect her opinion, but at the same time, if she's not willing to make that decision or to help me with what I want as far as death with dignity, I don't know where else I can go or what to do. Because I don't want to die like that, and I don't want to be one of those people that are, end up, and I apologize if it's too dark, but, taking their own lives because they don't have a better option, but there's also nobody to help them go their way.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Jim?
We've got so few options in this country for healthcare and assistance and all of that. I think building your community now as much as you can may help with some of that. You may find resources you didn't know were available through that, through building that community. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we just don't have the resources in this country to help, and we rely on family quite a bit. And if you don't have that family, you're you're not in a good position sometimes. We have, yeah. So.
Well, I'm glad you're tapping into the Secular Therapy Project, Aidan. That's a great resource, and it sounds like they're really helping you. And I think that's your best recourse right now, is just to stay plugged into that and take your cues from your therapist, and they're going to help you deal with your mom and whoever else and whatever choices and decisions you have to make as you move through this. And I want to encourage you to please stay in touch with me. Let me know, how things go after your meeting with your neurologist. I think you got one coming up next week or something, if I remember.
Yes, sir. Tuesday.
Okay.
Wednesday. But absolutely will do. And I just appreciate you talking with me, Dave, and you, Don.
You bet.
Like I said, I am just very grateful that I even found this podcast, ironically through a friend that I didn't know she was questioning. And she just started playing it while she was working. And Matt and you and many of the other hosts, Jenna, I mean, I can name them all, Shannon Q, you have all helped me be comfortable in my own skin and to say, this is who I am, whether you like it or not. I just don't have a reason to believe. And thank you
That's
for that.
awesome. Yeah. Will you stay in touch?
Yes, do stay in touch.
Yes, sir, will do.
Thanks,
Take care.
Aidan.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.
So always hard calls.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah. But if you like what we do and calls like this and would like to support us, here are some of the ways to support the Atheist Experience and the ACA. You can become a member for as little as 99 cents a month. Click the join button below the video. This will give you access to special chat emojis, and you'll be immune from the messaging limits that non-members have. The Atheist Experience is just one of the shows that we do here at the ACA. Make sure to check out other shows as well. Secular Sexuality on Thursdays at 7 Central. Truth Wanted airs live Fridays at 7. And then we have our Sunday shows, Talk Heathen at 1 Central. The Nonprofits is on right before this show at 3 Central. And you can support us on Patreon at tiny.cc/PatreonAXP. And you can help us support shows and projects like the Secular Therapy Project as well. And so, yeah, we do quite a bit and try to keep helping. So moving on to our next theist caller. Hold on, I got to press that one button. There we go. Paul in Pennsylvania, you're on with Jim and Dave. How can we help?
Okay. Which one am I talking to, Jim or Dave?
Both of us at the same time.
2 for 1.
Oh, I'm hearing one voice.
Well, there's my voice and
we only try to talk one at a time.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I would be maybe talking with Shannon, but apparently this is not her time, and so I really don't know too much about either of you. But in any case, and it sort of throws a curve, because what I shared with the interviewer at the beginning was, concerns that I have. What do you want me to do? I'll open it up that way. I think she says, tell us what you believe and why you believe it, or something like that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. Well, I am the author of a number of books, but one of them that is very popular all over the country is called 400 Prophecies, Appearances, and Foreshadowings of Christ in the Old Testament, or Tanakh. And
do you list all 400 of them?
Actually, 414. But there are more that I could add. But there's a church in California that is using it in adult class, I think. There's another.
Okay, that's nice. This is not an advertisement for your book. So let's talk about prophecies. And let's just talk about the fact that it is not unusual for the second and third book in a series to fulfill the prophecies in the first book of the series. So the fact that there are any prophecies, and I'm not going to debate which ones are prophecies and which ones aren't, because I think a number of the ones that people cite aren't actually prophecies when you take them in context. However, Jewish scholars are notorious for not taking everything in context, and I forget what they call it. They've got a name for it. So that's not really all that important. But given that the authors of the New Testament were aware of all of these prophecies, so-called prophecies in the Old Testament, why is it a surprise to you that they're fulfilled?
Well, it's very hard. There are at least 17 prophecies of the resurrection for the Messiah.
Right, but the authors of the New Testament know what those prophecies are, so why wouldn't they tell stories that appear to fulfill those? That's my question.
Yeah, well, for one thing, Paul wrote his letters just about 20 years after the event. You know, he was
Right,
put
and
to
he
death
was
by
aware
Nero.
of the prophecies, and he wrote things. He wrote stories to fulfill the prophecies. Why is that a surprise?
Yeah, but he also had his head cut off because it was a Christian, and a person who knows that he's promoting a fraud doesn't usually want to
Well,
die.
and what's your source for Paul dying with his head cut off?
Well, I mean, he talks to Timothy about it in the New Testament, that he's about to face that. Plus, everyone knows that many of the apostles were put to death.
Everybody knows that the earth was flat too, and that didn't turn out to be true. And most of what we have, most of the evidence that we have for the apostles being killed for their belief comes from books that are no longer that have been discarded from the Bible and are no longer aren't considered canon. So, do we take just bits and pieces, or what are we going to do with that? And you still haven't answered the question, by the way. And let me get back to this question. It's the most important one: is why would you expect the authors who knew these prophecies existed to not write stories that fulfill the prophecies?
Okay, every book of the New Testament, I believe, was written before 70 A.D.
So what? That's not an answer to the question.
Well, but it's a prelude to an answer to the question.
You get to the answer, please.
In other words, there isn't enough time for myth to develop. If people that are still alive and saw the resurrected Christ could confute it and say, well, we never saw this. And
okay, so you know that, first of all, that everything that happened before it was written down was nothing but word of mouth and stories being told, and that in every storytelling culture, which is almost all human cultures, all the ones that I'm aware of, the point of the story isn't truth, not like we think of it today, not historical truth, but rather some moral or other element to the truth. And so that becomes problematic when you start looking at historical truth. All of these authors, all these people telling these stories that were eventually written down by anonymous people, we don't know who they are, all knew these prophecies. So why is it a surprise that the New Testament has stories of some guy fulfilling these prophecies?
Okay, first of all, who spoke the last paragraph? Was that Dave or Jim?
That's Jim.
Why does it matter who's talking to you, Paul?
What was that?
Why does it matter who it is here? Shannon Q, Jim, Dave, Matt. Who cares? What's your point? First of all, what is your point? Because you wrote a book about prophecies, and you've got a lot of popular books and so on and so forth. But as you started the call with, what do you believe and why? What is your point to the call?
Well, what I believe is that God, the creator of the universe, came into this world to help people, like the previous caller, for example, and you and me, with respect to the our problem of hatred, lust, rape, murder, abortion.
Well, why doesn't he help people then? Why doesn't he help people then?
Right.
What? I don't see any evidence of this God of yours helping people with those things, Paul.
He's helped me. I've been a believer since 1950. And
that's nice.
Answered prayer, he has helped. To say that there is no help.
So when you say he's answered prayers, how do you get past the fact that we have a tendency as human beings to count the hits and not count the misses?
Well, first of all, I don't. If the Lord decides not to answer my particular prayer, I know that he knows far wiser than I do.
Well, if he knows that what's going to happen before you pray, why even pray?
The answer is no.
If he knows what's going to happen, why even pray? Because some prayers are yes, and some are no, and some are not now, and some are I don't know. So if God's going to do what God's going to do, if you're not listening, if God's going to do what God's going to do, why even pray, Paul? What's the point?
Okay, first of all, is this a one-way conversation?
No.
Can I interject a very dramatic prayer in my own life that I can speak of involving the lives of 3 people?
No, because that's anecdotal evidence and it doesn't prove anything.
All right. That's the problem is not only is it anecdotal, but also you've got at best a coincidence, and it's just 2 things that are correlated, right? You don't have anything that proves the link between the prayer and the events. The only thing you're doing is you've got 2 events that happen that are just correlated. So anecdotal evidence doesn't do us any good.
Am I speaking to Jim?
You're speaking to both of us at the same time. Yes.
I answered that before, but you don't both speak at the same time.
We're not.
Gave an opportunity to share what you call an anecdotal, and then you judge it without even hearing it.
I could give you an anecdote about me not getting prayer answered. What would you think of that, Paul?
Well, I would.
You're
switching to a different question.
No, you want to give us an example of God answering your prayer. I could give you an example of God not answering my prayer. Who wins?
Okay, and I'm aware of that. I can easily understand that kind of a dynamic. One of them being that God doesn't answer the prayers of a person who is not genuinely one of his children, unless
I was.
Right.
prayer of repentance faith.
I was, Paul. I was for 35 years. Paul.
But now you're
Paul. I was a genuine believer, saved, filled with the Spirit, baptized, believing in prayer, believing in answered prayer, and I can give you examples of many unanswered prayers. So I don't need to hear your example of what you think was an answered prayer.
Right. And also, I have something better than anecdotal evidence. We have a double-blind study done by the Mayo Clinic that shows that prayer is answered at the same rate as random chance when it comes to medical conditions. So am I going to take your anecdote over a double-blind study? No.
He's talking while you're talking, Jim.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
response to that double-blind study comment, but will you let me respond to it?
Go ahead.
First of all, I suspect the impression I have, and I've been made aware of some of these so-called blind studies, but they group all prayers in pretty much the same category: Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, and so on. That itself would throw a confusion.
No, the double-blind study was, in fact, Christians praying, and it was, I believe, the same church praying, but I could be wrong about that. They may have done different churches. But no, these were Christian prayers to the Christian God for Christians, double-blind.
Are you aware of what Jesus said in Matthew 7?
I honestly don't care what the Bible says until somebody proves that the Bible is worth something. It's true.
Yeah,
the Bible is the claim, not the evidence.
It's a response to what you're saying about, all these studies.
The only response to what I said is studies that prove the other studies wrong. That's the only response that matters.
That's not accurate. That's not.
Yes. The only thing that defeats science is more science.
Why should we care, Paul, what you say Jesus said in Matthew? Why should we care what you say Jesus said in Matthew?
No, it's not what I say. It's what it says there.
Okay, why should we care? Why should we care? Why should we care what Jesus said in Matthew?
That is,
pardon?
It is the one who made you that is doing the talking. That's why you should care.
That's what you claim. There's no evidence of that.
So again, we go back to my initial statement that the Bible is the claim, not the evidence.
Yeah, the Bible is the Word of God, and
that's your claim.
That's what you say.
Yeah, well, that's what the Bible says.
The Bible.
Well, of course, the Bible says that.
You can't use the Bible to prove the Bible.
Yeah,
That's what Jesus said about.
and again, I want to get, so you still have not answered, you still haven't answered my original question, and I'd like to get back to that original question, please. And if you can't answer, we're going to end the call. And the question is, because you've probably forgotten, is simply this: why is it a surprise that the authors of the New Testament, all of them, who knew the prophecies in the Old Testament, told stories that showed those prophecies to come true? Why is that a surprise?
Because it would be a surprise if all of them were martyred, essentially, for believing.
That's a claim. Can you back that claim up with evidence?
Yeah, sure. There's all kinds of evidence.
No, there isn't.
What?
The best evidence for any of them, any of the original apostles being martyred, comes from books that are not are considered heresy.
Like the Book of Acts.
Oh no, the Book of Acts doesn't say who was. We're talking about the Apocrypha of Peter, and we're talking about there's the Mary, and there's a couple others out there as well. Acts does
in error, Jim and Dave.
Nah, we're not.
The Apostle James was martyred, and Luke, the author of Acts, reported it. So to say that the Book of Acts is...
Luke is not the author of Acts. We don't know who the author of Luke or Acts is.
Oh, yes, we do. Luke
is
the author of Acts.
No. There is not a single biblical scholar who agrees with that statement. Everything except for some of the letters in Paul are anonymous. We don't know who they are. They have been attributed to those people over history. You're simply wrong.
Dave and James, I'm telling you that you are categorically in error. And anybody who wants to
thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, thank you so much. We will talk to you later. Have a nice day. Bye.
We are in error. Just stop the conversation, Jim. You're wrong.
Yeah.
You're just wrong.
I know. I'm wrong because I don't read any of the biblical scholars who actually talk about this, who can actually read the original text in their original languages. And
the summary of that, the summary of that call is you're wrong because you don't believe what the Bible says. That's pretty much it.
Well, to clarify, I think we're wrong because we don't believe and interpret the Bible the way the caller does. And this is the problem I have with theists in general when it comes to interpreting what their holy book says, their gods say. I don't care what you're using for a source, is if you're using the word interpret, you have a problem because you then have to prove your interpretation is correct.
Right.
And to date, no Christian on the Bible has been able to show me a method for coming up with a correct interpretation that will work and everybody agrees with. So,
but there are 411 prophecies that have come true. So that's cool. That's cool.
I was actually kind of wanted to find if his book actually listed all 414, because some of those things that people consider prophecies aren't actually prophecies, because it doesn't start with and blah blah prophesies this, right? They're in the middle of some poem or some other piece of text, and they're going, "Oh, this text refers to," and it doesn't.
Very vague references that they've interpreted as prophecies. Yep.
Yeah. Oh boy. So anyway, tiresome. It was. Yeah. So real quick, we do have a channel that houses all the shows of the ACA in audio podcast form. Visit tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. There you can listen to all the latest shows from the Atheist Experience, Talk, Heathen Truth, Wanted, Secular Sexuality, and the Nonprofits and others all on one channel. We have 3 Facebook groups that are run by the fans for the fans that you can interact with. The first is the Atheist Experience fan group at tiny.cc/FBAXP. Then there's the Atheist Experience private fan group, which you interact with others without having those interactions appear on your public feed. And that is at tiny.cc/FBAXPPR. And then we also have a new group, the Atheist Experience fan group, Atheist versus Theist Debates, where you can try out some of your arguments on theists and atheists alike. And we can find them at tiny.cc/AXP fan debates. And let's find our next theist caller. And all right, this is Nick in Colorado, who is a deist. Hello, Nick.
Hi, how are you doing?
Not too bad.
Great.
How can we help today?
Thanks for taking my call.
Uh-huh.
Just before I begin, I'd like to say that nothing that I will say can be used as any sort of support or justification for any theistic models or anyone's religious interpretations for their personal gods or anything of that sort. So,
okay,
okay,
I don't support anything like that. But I've watched the show a number of times, and I've seen people call in speaking about cosmological properties. And what they would call the fine-tuning argument. And I'm not only familiar with that from callers, I've also familiarized myself with it just through studying physics and things. And there's no doubt that it's something that absolutely deserves attention and needs to be addressed.
There are scientists who have addressed it and don't find it convincing at all for anything.
Yes and no. I'd say that there's just as many that do the opposite. So to just throw it away because there's a few that say that you can kind of dismiss it on certain grounds. And from what I've encountered, the primary argument against the fine-tuning position is the many worlds option. The idea that these numbers aren't hard to get when you have that many chances or whatever, so to speak.
Well, if many worlds is true, and we don't know that it is, but I would say more along the lines of if any of your fine-tuned values change, then yes, the universe would change and would be different. That doesn't mean it was fine-tuned.
My point is that there's no way to deny that our universe began as a low entropy configuration. And there is no place in nature where we encounter random undirected processes generating low entropy configurations of that magnitude, functionally specific.
So here's kind of the problem that you're having is that we can't do anything before Planck time. Or we don't know anything before Planck time because our understanding of physics breaks down. And I know many people say that physics break down, but I really think it's our understanding of physics breaks down. So, and given that you had a rapid expansion of the universe, and we don't know why that happened, how are you making a claim that you know how it happened or that it's impossible for it to happen?
Sure. So I'm not saying that I know how it happened or that it's impossible for it to happen. All I'm saying is that we don't have any other examples in nature anywhere of undirected natural process.
So, everything that you just talked about, when you say in nature, you mean within our universe, and we don't have any example of any other universe coming into being. So how do you make that statement?
Sure, because even if we don't have any other evidence of other universes coming into existence, we can see our physicists have determined how specific and it's not just the cosmological constant. That's the one that I know people a lot of times bring up. That's the one as far as fine-tuning, because that's the most dramatic example. But there are far other fine-tuned examples.
How are you making the claim that they're fine-tuned when we already admit that if there were anything else, the universe would be different? Because in fine-tuned means that something's got to have their finger on the button, and you haven't demonstrated that there's a finger to put on the button, much less that finger was actually put on the button.
Well, what I mean is that these values and the ratios between them are too particular in their functional specificity.
Well, one, we don't know that because we don't have any other universe and we have no way to test it. And two, just because they're specific doesn't mean that it was fine-tuned for this.
Sure. So first of all, I said functionally specific. And then second of all, as far as the properties of the universe go, we do have examples of the values of, say, for example, gravity being different things. We've studied zero gravity, we've observed zero gravity, and we've observed gravity in the quantity.
That is, whoa. So, yes, we've just so, in fact, we even know that gravity on the planet is not even the same because there are different densities of the ground, but that's not what we're talking about here. And gravity's not one of those constants anyway. So, but again, you're not demonstrating there's a finger. Show me where the finger to put on the dial is.
Well, exactly. My point is this: we have chance is not an adequate or sufficient answer when you're dealing with low entropy. Functionally specific configurations, and you won't find any physical.
That's a huge claim.
Oh, sure it is. Oh, you will not. What? Chance is an inadequate reason.
So you say
low entropy.
So here's the problem you have, right? Here's kind of the problem you have. One, you're saying chance. You have no way of calculating the odds of any universe coming into existence. And you can't calculate that odds until you know how the universe came into existence, and we don't know that. We don't know if it came out of a singularity, although it appears that seems to be the leading case. We don't know if there are many worlds. There's so many things we don't know about what happened before Planck time because we don't understand the physics. And here you're talking about odds, and we can't even come close to calculating those. And you still, none of this proves that there is a finger to put on the button.
Sure. There is no, are you denying that the beginning of our universe was a low entropy configuration?
Nick, take a breath, brother. Take a breath.
Yeah.
You're getting real excited. Here's the thing. Nick. You're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, Nick, need you to stop talking a minute, buddy. Take a breath. You're saying, if I understand you, that this universe is too complex and too fine-tuned for there not to be a creator of some sort, a deity of some sort. Am I correct in what you're saying?
If you don't mind, I will clarify that just a little bit more specifically.
Okay.
What I'm saying specifically is that our universe, from reason and logic, okay, seems to be the deliberate action of an intelligent agent. And that's
prove the intelligent agent exists. That's what I'm asking you to do.
Okay. Yeah. See, you're basically saying we don't know, so therefore it must be this. And you're filling in the blank with a God or a... No, we don't. We actually don't.
We do know. What we do know is that low entropy, functionally specific configurations, low entropy, okay, of functionally specific configurations of this magnitude never at any place in our experience arise from natural undirected processes.
Well, let me stop you again. What you're talking about very specifically are events that happen within this universe. What I want to know is, how do you know this is true for the beginning of the universe? How do you know what the entropy level was before the universe? How do you know that that is true external to the universe?
Who's saying anything external to the universe? I'm not speaking external to the universe.
Well, you have to. If you're talking about the creation of the universe, and you're saying that nothing happens except, the only way we know things that happen are things that happen in this universe. And you're trying to say that everything we know that happens inside this universe applies outside this universe. And you're also making the claim that this universe is specifically fine-tuned. But we're talking. So there's got to be an outside the universe. So how do you know this is true outside the universe?
I'm not talking about anything outside the universe. All I'm saying is that the low entropy, functionally specific beginning of our universe, the only thing that we know that can cause those conditions is intelligent agents. That's the only.
No, we don't.
Okay, Jim.
Because
Nick,
there's no, there's no. We don't know what caused the universe. That's the problem. You're making an assumption.
Sure, but we do know. All we know, what we do know, is that it was
Nick,
entropy.
Nick.
So what? But that does not prove anything intelligent did it.
I know you love low entropy and all of those terms. Let's say there was an intelligent designer, as you suggest there was. So what?
I say
Now
intelligent
what?
agent, but if you say designer, okay.
Intelligent agent. So what? Now what do we do? Here we are now.
Sure.
Who cares? Who cares,
straight
Nick?
up. Now here we are now. Right. Huh? So
Who
now,
cares?
like I said, now I don't say that you can use that. I don't say you can use that as the source of your morality. I don't say that it's.
Well, then what are we even
looking
talking
in on
about?
you
Why?
to help you.
Why?
No.
Why are we even talking about it, Nick? What difference does it make?
Because we're
We don't.
acknowledging this just as a point of acknowledgement that something did it. That's
So?
all. Just as a matter of fact. Just as
We don't
Well,
know. and
something-
you make the
something did it.
claim, But here we are. So what? We don't know, Nick.
we have no. Sure we do. And this idea, like I say,
How do we know? How do we know
Low entropy,
that something
Jim. Low
intelligent?
entropy.
Oh, it's just because. Yeah. Well.
Sure.
Right. How do we know?
Because and not only low entropy, but it's also functionally specific. So it's a combination.
How do you know that? How do you know it's functionally specific?
How do we know it's functionally specific? Because it actually had outcomes that require it produced outcomes that its results are necessary for. So, like for example,
So what? How do you know that did not happen just because it happened? If the fundamentals of the universe were different, the universe would be different. We've already admitted that. But what you haven't done is proven your case that there was an intelligent agent that did it.
Mm-mm.
Sure, it's not about it just being a different universe. It's functionally specific, though. So, like our.
How do you know that? Prove it. What is the experiment you did to prove that it's functionally specific?
I'll tell you exactly how we know that. I will tell you exactly how we know that, if you'll permit me. Okay? So here's how we know that we have this weird thing. And look, I'm not saying that the universe is fine-tuned for life to exist. That's not my position. I don't say it's like this for us to be here. But what I'm saying is us being here creates an even bigger problem for the idea that this is all random and undirected. If the universe began as a random and undirected event, okay, even though it was extremely low entropy and functionally specific, if we just say, and I grant you that was just random and undirected, okay, cool. Let's just say some way, somehow, nature and undirected processes were able to create a low entropy configuration of this magnitude that is functionally specific. Okay, cool. But then as the universe goes and grows and carries on through time, entropy increases. So the entropy in the universe...
Oh, no. Hold on. Real quick.
Sure.
You need to tell me, what is the second law of thermodynamics?
That's what we're talking about. Is entropy? Is about the increase of entropy.
What is quote me please, the entire complete second law of thermodynamics?
Okay. You want me to quote you entirely? It has to do with closed.
The exact phraseology for the second law of thermodynamics.
All right. Let's find one we can agree on. Let's see what we have.
Because I will guarantee you're missing the most important part of that law.
Oh, sure. What's the most important part? The total entropy of an isolated system.
Ah, there you go.
Available.
That's the word you're looking for. How do you know the universe is isolated?
An isolated system because we don't have access to any others.
How do you know that?
We don't have access. We don't have access to any other universes. So what do you mean?
How do you know that?
Isolated system. We don't have access. We have no access to anything else.
What if we
You
just
have
haven't discovered them yet?
Yeah. How do you know? How do you know that black holes aren't there? Also, the important part that you're missing when it comes to this planet and this planet having life, this planet is not a closed system. It gets energy from the sun.
Our universe is a closed system. Yes, it is. So if you allow me to continue,
How do you know that?
I can make my point.
How do you know that?
Where do you have evidence? Where do you have evidence of any other universes? Where do you have that? Do you
Lack of evidence is not evidence of lack.
Yes.
So
Lack of evidence is not evidence of lack. We don't know everything yet, and we cannot see everything in the universe yet. So how do you know?
have evidence. Sure, but we have evidence that everything within our universe is contained within our universe. Yes, we do. So are you?
Yes, but how do we know this universe is isolated? So one, how do you know this universe is isolated? And two, the presence of life on this planet happens because the sun is introducing energy into this planet.
The fact that they were able to develop the second law of thermodynamics indicates that we have a closed system. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to develop it. Because the second law of thermodynamics is about...
Oh, yeah, it is about closed systems, but the second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to the entire universe yet until we know that it is, in fact, a closed system. Not only do we not know if it's a closed system, not only that, but we also don't know what's going to happen at the end of the universe. There are multiple theories, right? Some say that we're going to rubber band back into a singularity, and some say we're going to keep expanding until nothing but energy is left and we all become quantum, and everything becomes a quantum fluctuation. I'm way oversimplifying some of this, and I know that. But again, you don't know any of this. And so when you start using the second law of thermodynamics and you don't assume you assume it's an isolated system, you have to prove that. And we can't prove it. That's the problem. And when it comes to this planet, our planet is not an isolated system. We get more energy in than we get energy out. So the laws of entropy, the second law of thermodynamics doesn't work quite the way you think it does in this particular case, because we're adding energy all the time. And that's the problem. And so again, we keep coming back to, you have no evidence that there is a finger on the button, that there is some sort of intelligent agent. You don't have any evidence that this is a closed system, that the universe is a closed system, and you don't have any evidence for any of your claims. And we've already admitted that if the values of the universe were different, then the universe would be different, and we might be different if there was any type of life in that universe. We just don't know. And we don't know how to calculate the odds, so we can't say it's against the odds. It may be the only way universes can be created is to have them created for life. We don't know any of this stuff. And to claim that you do is just an argument from incredulity and doesn't work for us. And it's not going to work for anybody else. So thank you very much for calling. Have a nice day.
Clear?
Okay.
Good summary, Jim. No, seriously, that was just, those arguments I get so tired of them, because it's basically saying we don't know, so therefore must be this. And I get so tired of those. Yeah.
I do too. And and he was just getting so upset that I just he just doesn't get
he got himself quite worked up. Yep.
Yeah. And again, when people start talking about the second law of thermodynamics, they forget isolated systems so many times. So anyway, we've got a video of some stuff that's upcoming and that has happened around the ACA, and we're going to run that for you guys here right about now.
To start off with, what's got you turned on this week?
Oh, well, aside from Timothy Chalamet every day.
Every day.
Yeah, I would be happy to be abandoned in a desert with him anytime.
I definitely don't trust the Canadian government, Aaron. I just want to let you know, you guys are just a mining corporation in disguise.
Yeah,
and that is my stance.
And on Christmas Eve, the family beats the log with sticks and sings a song that translates to, if you don't crap well, we'll beat you with a stick.
Someone could in the future could look back at New York City and they could find a Spider-Man costume.
Exactly.
And then look at the Spider-Man comics. And that Spider-Man costume is not evidence that Peter Parker fought Dr. Octopus on the Brooklyn Bridge.
God wasn't enough for God. God needed more than God. This is what you're saying. God wasn't enough for himself.
The prime disappointer.
Well, now I'm going to have to go find out what find out why God was not enough for God.
Well, I know that's the basic Christian doctrine, is that God was sitting around and was lonely, and so that's why he created man.
Right. Sure. And also, for those of you interested, we do have AXP merchandise, which you can get at tiny.cc/merchaca. That's MERCHACA. You can get t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, stickers, and a whole bunch more stuff. Right below the chat, you'll notice there's a donate now box. Donations made there mean that the ACA will get 100% of the proceeds. YouTube does not take a cut, and it's the best way to support us. If you'd like to continue the discussion after the show, join us in the atheist community of Discord, the fan-run Discord server at tiny.cc/ACD Discord. Finally, we want to send a big thank you out to the crew who put this show together every week. These guys are absolutely amazing. We cannot do this show at all without them. If you watch any other shows, almost every other show has some sort of technical issue that crops up, especially at the beginning. And we almost never do, because those guys are in the background making our jobs so much easier. Dave, I know you produce your own show as well.
No, I don't. I have a producer, Ethan, but no, I was thinking, oh, don't jinx us, Jim. Don't jinx us.
Well, any technical problems that we do have are not the fault of those folks. All of our audio works because those folks put so much time and effort into it. And you know, we do.
They do an awesome job.
They're amazing folks.
They make
and we
our
cannot
job
do
easy.
without them.
Yeah.
Oh, they do. They do. And our job is still talking and keeping track of everything that's going on in a call is not easy, but they make it so much easier for us to do what we do, and we do appreciate every single one of them. All right, you ready for the next call?
Let's go.
All right. Let's do Michael in Maryland. So what do you want to talk about, Michael?
I wanted to talk about your Cathalophobia. I also wanted to say that this is the same Michael that called last week with gutless ignition or whatever the heck his name is, which I talked about how evolution, particularly survival of the fittest, justified George Floyd's murder. But I don't want to talk about that because I see the panel is full of, well, let's just say non-minorities. And I know when we talk about racism, it makes people uncomfortable. So I'll just talk about how.
Well, let's go back to your survival of the fittest thing, because I think you've got a fundamental misunderstanding of survival of the fittest. Because when it comes to evolution, survival of the fittest does not mean which animal can do CrossFit the best, right? It's about round holes in square pegs, that kind of fit, and not the kind of fit you're talking about. So that is problematic.
Well, I'm going to say some more problematic stuff because I know who made the term survival of the fittest. It was this guy named Hubert, and he made the term as in a capitalist term for like how various favorable races go against other races and how they dominate them and pretty much do supremacy against them. So you're doing the old little, like, you probably haven't looked up the term and how Hubert made it and how he made it for social Darwinism. But I'm gonna go back to this tonight at 8 o'clock when you have a fellow minority on the panel, because last week, gutless ignition, he got butthurt and he hanged up on me. I had a good conversation. I talked for about 40 minutes. He could barely speak. And when I gave him a chance to speak, he couldn't say nothing. He couldn't refute any of my arguments. And his family. Yeah. So get to what you want to talk about.
What's the point of your call, Michael?
Yeah, get to the point.
What did you call for? What do you want to talk about?
So I wanted to talk about Cathalophobia and how you all always beat up on Catholics you all always beat up on Catholics and stuff like that. It's so, yeah. I'm good. How you all always beat up on Catholics when it's mostly Protestants that oppress people in the Western world, particularly in America.
Well, we beat on Catholics for very specific things. So it's not just general beating up on Catholics, right? Most of the time, at least when I do it, and I don't know about other people, but when I beat up on Catholics, it's on one particular topic. And that's usually because they are the largest pederast protection racket in the world right now. They certainly have the most money. And I will also beat up on Catholics, not just for that very specific thing, but I'll also beat up on Catholicism for the fact that they could single-handedly end world hunger just by selling off their property and their artwork, and don't. So when you say atheists beat up on Catholicism, that's usually what I hear among atheists. And I don't consider that Catholicophobia. That is two very specific criticisms of the Catholic Church.
I never heard that term before, Catholicophobia.
Well,
yeah, it's kind of amusing.
I just made it. Yeah,
Oh.
very amusing. That's why I made it. You know, you got a phobia against everything. Why don't you have a phobia against people like yourself who talk against the largest Christian denomination in the world? But I think that the people who are truly protecting against, you know, the whole child abuse racket is our public school system. Because you know how many people like abuse children through there, but you
right, and so my
Oh,
specific
that's
my
whataboutism.
specific claim,
So the Catholic
yeah, it's
Church is
whataboutism,
excused because other people do it, right?
right?
The
And also
Catholic
that does
Church is famous for relocating priests who are pedophiles. Why is that okay, Michael?
Oh, it's not. But that's
Okay.
Right.
But we're not supposed
my
to beat
specific-
up on them. We're not supposed to speak out against that. That's Catholicophobia if we speak out against that.
You can speak up. I mean, it's like somebody saying you're not supposed to speak out against gay people assaulting people in jail. But when you
So let's also speak to my specific claim against Catholicism, which is they are the largest pedophile protection racket in the world. I didn't say they had the most pedophiles. I said they're the largest pedophile protection racket. That's very, very specific because of what Dave just mentioned is that not only do they move priests around, but they'll move priests out of a country and then put them right back in the same position they were in dealing with children.
Well, they're not protecting them that good because you all keep on, of course, exposing them. So they're not doing it that well.
Oh, no, they're...
Why is that about you started this call by calling us Catholicophobes, whatever the hell that is, and then you keep on this racket about us speaking out against the Catholics. What is your problem with that, Michael?
Well, I think it's disgusting when you generalize any group and talk about
We don't.
problems. Like
I don't.
I
don't. I'm just saying the Catholic Church as a whole continues to protect their pedophiles. That's a fact, Michael.
It's a handful of people. You think billions of Catholics are protecting like this handful of abusers? It's not a whole. It's just a handful of people that.
Oh, so it's not bad then if just a few people are doing it. It's not a big deal. It's just a few people.
Especially when the few people doing it are the leadership of the Catholic Church,
right.
The bishops and the cardinals, right?
So Pope Francis was finding people that were abusers and hiding them. Come on.
I never. Whoa!
Michael,
There's a
why
non sequitur.
Why are you defending the Catholic Church, Michael?
That's a complete non sequitur. I never said anything about the Pope. I said specifically bishops and cardinals. The leadership is doing this. Bishops have moved priests out of their diocese and into other dioceses, not just local dioceses, but across the country and sometimes out of countries to avoid prosecution. The Catholic Church in New York, that bishop in particular, has contributed more money to reducing the prosecutorial ability, and name is running out of my head, of the prosecution. They've contributed more money to making it harder to prosecute pederasts in New York than the National Association of the Man-Boy Love or National Man-Boy Love Association. They've contributed more money. That came right out of the bishop's pocket. That came right out of the diocese. This is what you're doing, right? That's why I say, and I'm very specific about what I said. I never said anything about the Pope because I have no idea what his involvement in this is. I do know that bishops and cardinals are heavily involved in hiding priests from prosecution. That's my specific claim. You want to deal with that?
Okay, so these nameless bishops and cardinals, the people you probably studied for years who you cannot name them, some random guy in New York that's kind of like changing laws. I mean, people do.
No, he's not. No. He is reducing the statute of limitations. That's what I was looking for. He is contributing money to avoid increasing the statute of limitations on pederasts so that you can't go farther back in time and prosecute pederasty.
Well, do you think that somebody could prove that they got assaulted 40 years ago? I mean, at some point.
Wow. Are you really, are you on this show defending child abuse?
Are you a Catholic?
Hold on.
Are you defending child abuse?
No, I'm not. Are you defending child abuse by giving money to the public schools, even though it turns out?
Oh, yeah,
we're not talking about the public schools. Michael,
he's
you
dropped.
called in to talk about Catholics. Is he gone?
Yeah, I dropped him.
Okay.
I'm not. The whataboutism on this is just it's beyond the pale. And no, I don't support it. But quite frankly, public schools aren't hiding pederasts. They tend to fire them whenever they can. And there may be, because there are more public school teachers that are on priests. I would imagine that the numbers are there. But again, the Catholic Church has more money, has more people at the top actively hiding pederasts than anybody else.
Well, it's also coming out recently in the last few years that evangelical churches have been doing the same thing, protecting their own and covering things up and dealing with it internally and all those bullshit things.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a problem, and it's starting to come out more and more, but it's not Catholicophobia.
Well, I guess
what a stupid term.
I didn't realize I was Catholophobic, but apparently I am. Evangophobic too? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
Catholophobic would mean I'm afraid of Catholics. I don't know what. Yeah. Oh my God. What a train wreck that guy was.
Yeah. Real train wreck. All right. Here we go. Another one. This is Sliew from Australia. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Doing just good.
Hey, Sliew.
Hey, how are you? Right, yeah. So I'm just, you seen why I'm ringing? Just talking about the pathway to evolution.
I'm sorry. What was your question or comment?
The pathway to evolution, I believe, is wrong. Well, I think it's doubtful. There's some questions around how things evolve. That's what I want to talk about.
What questions are those? Because there's more evidence for evolution than there is for gravity.
What's your claim there, Sliew? Okay. Make your claim and back it up.
Okay, right. So the pathway for evolution is through mutation of the DNA. Is that right?
No, it's a change in allele frequency over time.
It's through mutation, so that's how it is.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, mutations are a good way to. Yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
Oh, that's what it says. It says mutation is the doorway for evolution.
Change in alleles would be more correct, but yes, okay. We'll go with that. Go. Keep going.
Do you have any examples of a change through mutation that's beneficial?
Off the top of my head, I do not, but there are those that are beneficial, and in fact, most mutations are actually benign. They don't have any effect on us one way or the other. And one of the things you can look at is the fact that, and this is why I was kind of being a little obstinate about your word mutation, is that children are not clones of their parents, and so there are changes in the DNA from a parent to a child, and those aren't mutations, and yet the child does not have the same DNA. It's a combination of the DNA between the two parents. So this whole thing of mutation isn't quite right, and that's why I was kind of harping on it. We'll continue to harp on it. And so it's these changes, and they're not necessarily mutations, that affect things. And most of the time, the changes are benign. They don't have a positive or negative impact. Some do, some don't. So that is, and when you start stacking enough of those changes up, you eventually at some point end up with something different. That is a way oversimplification of evolution.
Well, I'm not an evolutionary biologist, but I trust the science on this, and I know people who know more about this than me. So I trust what the science has shown us over time, and the truth of that. What if you think that evolution is problematic? What is your alternative to that, Sliew? What is the other option that you like better?
Well, the thing is, it can't be through evolution. That's the thing.
What is it then? What is it? That's what I'm asking you.
Hang on, let me talk. Whether it's through a god or whether it's through something else, one thing it can't be through is through evolution. And
why not?
Well, the science.
That's the claim. You repeat it. You restated your claim with no evidence. Give us the evidence and give us what you think the alternative is.
Okay. Let me give you examples of evidence. Okay, so there's a website called GARD. It's genetic and rare disease disorder. And if you go onto GARD website, it has a A to Z list of all the diseases that afflict mankind. And so it starts off with the letter A.
Okay, what's your point? Move quickly. Come on.
Yep. Okay. So here's my point. Every single disease within this list, from A to Z, when you're starting just with the letter, if I just start with the letter A, there's about 2,300 diseases just within the letter that come under the letter A. Each of them is through a mutation. Every single one of them is through a mutation of the DNA.
Okay. So what?
So what I'm saying is the pathway through evolution, which they claim is mutation, is wrong. It cannot happen.
And your evidence, and the only evidence you have is this website and the fact that I will accept your claim that over 2,000 diseases that start with A are all from mutations. I will give you that. And that somehow proves the mountains of evidence that we have that evolution isn't true. And when I say mountains, now keep in mind, again, we have more proof, more scientific evidence, more experiments that evolution is true than we do for gravity. If you put those two stacks of experiments and papers together, evolution is much, much bigger than gravity. The total amount. So how do you get there from there?
Well, if you go have a look at how evolution happens, they say it's through mutation.
No, I've already refuted that.
Stuck on that.
And I will refute it again. And no, it's not through mutation because, okay, so are children mutations of their parents?
Well, you're going against science.
No, answer the question. Answer the question. Are children mutations of their parents? You can answer the question?
Children mutation of their parents.
Are children mutations of the parents? Yes.
Well, I mean, they carry genetic information from both sides.
It's a yes or no. It's a yes or no question. It's a yes or no question. Are children mutations of their parents?
Well, I mean, it's an odd question because
no, it's not.
What you explain to me? What do you mean? You explain to me.
Do you have children? Or do you have are children? Any child, I don't care what species you care to. Let's just take human children. Is a human child a mutation of the parent's DNA?
They're not.
Oh, But are they clones of the parents' DNA?
Yes, they're clones. I'd say
No. They're not clones of the parents' DNA. They're a combination of the parents' DNA.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that.
Okay, that's not mutation.
Sliew.
And
let me ask you
those
this.
changes are evolution.
Listen.
Sliew, I want to ask you something.
I'm telling you.
You called in to basically make the claim that evolution can't be true. I want to know, if evolution is not how we got here, how do you believe we got here? You, individually.
Well, that's not why I'm calling that. You know,
I don't care. I'm asking you that question. You called to say evolution can't be true. I want to know what you think is true in place of evolution.
Well, I'm a theist, so
that's what I thought. So you think God created us?
Yes, I do.
What evidence do you have for that?
I can't present any evidence.
Okay, then I guess we're done.
We're done. No evidence. Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what we're discussing. Because see, here's the thing: you do not understand what evolution is. Evolution is the change in allele frequency over time that has nothing to do with mutation. Mutation is a part of it, certainly, but mutation is only a small part of it, because you also have viruses that insert things into DNA. We have entire sections of our DNA that only come from viruses. Some of those are good mutations, some of those not so, but that's the case. We do have viruses that change DNA, and they change DNA in children for reproduction as well. But there are a number of things you just don't understand about evolution. So what I would suggest you do, and anybody else who's listening who thinks that you're right, there's a really, really good course on the basics of evolution on YouTube, put out by the same guys who do it's by the Crash Course folks, and it's a PBS. Really, really good introduction to evolution, and you haven't even watched that. And if you haven't even watched that, you can't really argue it because you don't understand it.
And you know what you're saying, mate. I don't think you understand. Mutation is the doorway. It's the only doorway for you.
No, it's not.
It is. You need to go and have a read yourself.
No. I have.
I don't know where
lots of it.
I'm using science.
Anyway.
I'm using
Yeah,
science.
you're just simply wrong on this. And thank you so much for calling, and hope you have a nice weekend.
Yeah, Sliew, and for those of you watching, Sliew, here's the problem. I understand why theists, Christians in particular, have a problem with evolution, because if evolution's true, then the creation story of Adam and Eve and original sin can't be true. And if original sin doesn't exist, there's no need for a savior. And the whole gospel message crumbles in on itself.
Right.
I get it.
Yep. Yeah, it really does. And again, the Crash Course stuff is really, really good. They've got a crash course on biology. They got a crash course on evolution. So definitely go check those out if you want more.
Aaron Ra has a great video series on the subject as well.
Yes, he does.
He crushes it. Yeah.
Yeah, he really, really does. All right. And so that brings us to Patrick in Florida, and I believe we're running up on time here. Mm-hmm. So Patrick, or wait, I did not hit the button apparently. Now I hit the button. All right, now Patrick, you're on. I'm sorry.
Hey, how you all doing today?
Just fine.
What do I believe and why? I believe in pantheism. I've called in like a couple times before. I talked with Jim there. You know, we had a little chat in Messenger and stuff like that. But suffice it to say, I see an order and elegance in the universe and a clear design from my perspective. You know, you all were talking about evolution and DNA. Wouldn't you say DNA is directly tied to evolution, right?
Yes.
Hey, I'd like to get into the watchmaker fallacy for a brief second. Now, if you have a watch like DNA or a
So
watch you discover,
yeah, so you can just say watchmaker argument, and I know exactly what you're talking about. We don't need to necessarily go into it, but here's the question: how do you determine what is a reliable method? If let me go back. I've got two trees. One tree, I tell you, is created. The other tree is natural. Nobody's ever seen these trees before. How do you determine the natural one from the created one? Then they look exactly the same, but nobody's seen these trees. How do you go about determining which one is created and which one is natural?
As far as that goes, you wouldn't be able to distinguish that, I wouldn't believe. But
that's the problem with the watchmaker argument. We humans are very, very bad at figuring out what is natural and what is created, unless we know specifically that something was created. When it comes to watches, when it comes to art, when it comes to all the things, all the examples people use for the watchmaker argument, we know what those are. And there's a set of so-called steps off the coast of Japan that a scuba diver found, and he swears up and down that these are steps for giants. And geologists say, no, they're not. They're naturally occurring formations. We're really, really bad at determining design from things when we don't know. And not only are we really bad at it, but we're also very prone to seeing something and then seeing that as a pattern and assuming that the pattern is true.
How does that relate to? Anyway, let's move on beyond that. The watchmaker fallacy I have problems with, but we apparently don't have enough time for that. My God would be a natural God as a pantheist. There's nothing supernatural about the universe. It's all natural.
Then what's the point of your God? Then what's the point of your God?
Why do you need a God, Patrick? Why can't there just be nature?
There has to be a point to a God. Why does there need to be a point to a God? Why does a God need to serve you? Why do you need to get special? It's a reverence for it is what I have. Like Einstein, he said, the music of spheres. He said straight up, I'm not an atheist. Some atheists appear to want to put Einstein as an atheist, but he clearly said he was a pantheist.
No, he didn't say that. He said if he had to choose, he would be a pantheist. He would be a theist in the same. He'd believe in Spinoza's God, which is basically pantheism. But he said more times that he didn't believe in a God than he has said he believes in the God of Spinoza. So that's just simply not the case.
Explain that to Taku, because Mikhail Taku was explaining that he's got a YouTube video about the God of Einstein. So
yes, he does, and he's talking about yes. And that doesn't change.
Why does it matter to me what Einstein thought? I don't follow Einstein, and you seem to feel like you need to attach the. You're not listening. You're not listening, Patrick. Patrick. We can't both talk at the same time. You say that you want to attach some God to the nature around you, and that you want to believe in that God being that. Why does there need to be a God of any kind in your world?
Well, I would ask you the same question. Why does there need to be an absence of a God? Same question.
No,
because there's no evidence for one.
There's no evidence for a God. That's why.
No evidence. Okay. Evidence something outside of our universe with science. Science doesn't go there.
No, I'm talking about the world that we know and the world that we see. I don't see evidence. I don't see evidence for a God.
All right.
So
Patrick,
therefore, I don't feel the need to attach.
Let's get into this. How do you ask for evidence? What would you say would be evidence of a God? You will say that's dependent upon the God claim, right?
When you make a claim that there's a God, then I say, show me evidence. That's that simple. Don't make it complicated.
Consider evidence of God.
What?
I've never had an atheist answer that question ever.
What's the
It's
question?
because we don't.
What would you consider evidence?
Oh, so there's a problem with the question, and the problem is that
Anything.
we don't know what it would take because we haven't seen the correct evidence. But this is also why a prosecutor is not allowed to ask a jury, what evidence would it take for you to convict the defendant? You don't do that. You've got to present the evidence and evaluate it. And no evidence for the evidence presented for any God so far has failed to meet its burden of proof.
The evidence is based on the claim. The evidence is based on the claim. When you make a claim of such and such God, then you need evidence to back up that claim. Because to throw out the term God is so nebulous and vague that it doesn't even have a definition. So when you throw out a claim that I'm defining God as blank, then there needs to be evidence to support that claim. It's that simple.
If you can define what you would consider evidence.
No, you define the God first.
Define the God, present your evidence. We'll decide if it meets our burden of proof or not. That's the way it works.
As far as I believe, so what would you consider evidence of that?
No, you keep asking the same question, and the answer is still the same.
And yeah, the answer is still the same. And we will talk to you next time. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye. And that was...
What would it take for you to believe? Depends on the claim you're making.
Yeah. It actually absolutely does. If you're making a claim the sky is blue, we don't need as much evidence for that. But if you claim that some guy rose from the dead, we're going to need a lot more evidence for that claim. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. It's not my fault you don't understand how evidence works. So anyway, we are unfortunately at the end of the show. And real quick, Michael in Florida, your question was, what's your take on unexplainable events? They're unexplainable. Says so right there in the event or in the question. If you can't explain it, you just can't explain it. And you have to say, I don't know. And we have to be comfortable with that. And that's hard sometimes. So anyway, and that's really the only call I see we can talk about very quickly before we end the show. So Dave, what you got coming up for us?
I'm just getting my book done. It's about ready to come out, and I'm doing the audiobook, and that's what I've been focused on.
Oh, fantastic. Looking forward to reading it and helping to promote it. And
thanks.
So hopefully that comes out soon. All right, folks. Well, that puts this in the can for us. Let's get one more shout out to the crew in the background who have done so much and should probably take over a call-in studio. Because I keep flubbing it up. There we go.
They're going, yeah.
The one thing I have to do, I keep flubbing up. And this is why we have those wonderful people in the back doing the jobs that they do. We have one person dedicated to sound and one person dedicated to video and one person keeping track of everything, as well as one person screening all of our calls. And sometimes there's more than one screening our calls. Anyway, thank you to all those folks. Thanks, Dave, for being on. Yeah, absolutely wonderful as always to the show. And everybody who's watching, thank you for watching. We really do appreciate it. We can't do this show without all of your viewers and everybody in chat. Thank you guys. I wasn't monitoring chat, but hopefully we kept that to a dull roar and weren't too mean to everybody or to each other. So anyway, you guys take it easy and have fun. That's it for us.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.